Welcome once again to Living in the 21st Century. Joining me this morning is Dr. Kfoury from River Educational Consulting. Doc, it's always a pleasure having you on.
It's a pleasure being here.
Thank you. You know, recently, over the past couple of months, we have seen a lot of disturbances when it comes to young kids, and I want to say that was really imposed on them, and to some degree, it's not a fault of theirs. And I'm wondering if children today coping with bullying due to the fact that their mom or dad were undocumented and they got deported for that fact, and now they have to bear up at school with that understanding that there's no longer mommy there, or sometimes they may not even be able to go to school. And what you think for kids at this point that have to go through this, what serious mental, psychological impact it may have on them, not only now, but going on in the future? Would we be raising a generation of now young potential criminals who seeks attention and so forth that they probably would have lacked due to the fact there's no mom and dad anymore?
That's a really, really good, complex question, Errol, so I appreciate it. Let's try to break it down just a little bit.
Sure.
So there's a lot of there is a lot of activity going on in our country right now with undocumented citizens that are being escorted back to the original country of their homeland. And that has caused a lot of chaos and a lot of stirring. But I do want to say the schools, especially in the state of Massachusetts, have done a wonderful job at eliminating the ability of ICE and their agents to come into the schools, which is, I want to applaud every single educator and administrator in those schools for doing exactly that. At this point in time, also, too, what we need to be aware of is that children are actually forced into court at the same time to testify on their behalf why they should stay in the United States. So children as little as 4 years old are brought in front of a judge, unrepresented at most time because the families don't have any money. So that in addition is traumatic and will forever stay with them, and that will shape their mind. I don't necessarily think that either the bullying from the what we will call naturalized Americans or born into Americans. The bullying is bullying, and we will see the same effects of bullying that we see every day with bullying for whatever the reasons are, right? I do not necessarily think that we'll see an uptick in maladaptive behaviors or aggressive behaviors or without a mom and dad. On the contrary, what tends to happen is the populations that are really being targeted by our country at this point in time for undocumented citizenship they're really respectful of generations previous, and they're really respectful of taking care of families. So I think in actuality, we're going to see a lot of young children grow up a lot faster. So I think we'll see a lot of we may even see a lot more truancy because the young individuals are going to have to leave school to go to work to help out the family, to take care of the family that are remaining in the country. So we'll see a lot more truancy. We might see a lot more failure. That might also spread the gap between minorities and success rates. And I think colleges will adjust to that and see that. I think high schools will adjust to that. So I really actually right now it's a really good guess as to which direction we'll head in the future for those children who are being bullied or those children who are losing their parents because of deportation. But I think overall, I think the trauma that they will be left with will shape them one way or the other. To watch a parent, or not even to have a parent, like you said, in the morning and they say goodbye to them and then they go to school and they come back and their parent has been taken to one of the detention centers or put on a plane somewhere, that's really, really damaging. And that will lead to emotional abandonment concerns, that will lead to uncertainty, that might lead to distancing themselves from other people. And we might see a lot more solo healers, is what we'll call them, where they only want to heal themselves. They don't want to depend on anybody else. They're very isolated, and they never really fully come out of that survivor mode moving forward.
Yeah. It's one of the things that I'm really concerned about Now, I don't have a problem with undocumented residents or immigrants getting removed, especially those who are criminals and will commit all kinds of crimes and felonies within the nation, do a lot of harm. Of course, I absolutely agree that those kind of people should be removed from the nation. One of the things I don't understand is that they're taking everybody, legal and illegal, and when they get to where they're supposed to go, they then sift out the good from the bad. Now, I know every man is innocent until proven guilty. I just believe that if you're going to detain someone on the spot, that you should at least ask for their legal status in this country to know where they're at. If I say, well, I'm a citizen, I show you my ID, that's the way it should. But I've heard of situations where people, I used to have gone into businesses and hold everyone, and those are the things that I'm worried about, because if a child knows that his parent is an American, whether they're naturalized or even born, and there are Americans, born Americans, who have different accents and may sound different, but actually born here. And assuming the accent sounds a little bit strange, you recognize only that after being detained that they are really a born American citizen. And kids will always be kids, and it can't really pull the man or woman out of a kid till they reach that level of maturity to cope with knowing that their mom have just been arrested alone, or dad, and knowing very well that they are a citizen, and to hear that, wait, my mom is locked up, or my dad is locked up, but they are citizens. Why? I mean, that to a child is like throwing a spear through its heart. And even as you said before, to even take kids at that tender age of 4 before judges, I mean, it leaves to question what kind of generation we will be faced with going forward in the years. Because even though some may left to fend on their own, in many ways, there may be a tendency that the only way to survive in this harsh economic times is to turn to criminal activity. And they just go from bad to worse. And they may hear, well, hey, your mother was an illegal immigrant, your father was an illegal immigrant, and look what you're doing, you'll now turn into crime. You're no different to your mom or dad. I mean, these are things that could be easily be speculated. How could we give a comforting word to children at this stage who may know very well, and I've heard of kids through the grapevine who would have spoken to their mom and dads about their status, question their status, and as to whether they are going to get deported or not. How we could just frame their mind to just neutralize their mind to think just calm and go on with their school life.
Well, I think it is a lot easier than just saying just calm, right? I do believe that the generation that is going to survive through this, I understand the Trump administration and what they intend on doing, and I agree with you. I think if you are a criminal and you are doing wrong, whether you're an American or you're not American, you should be punished. And if that means that you are returned to a homeland, then that is unfortunately what that fate is, right? But I do agree that there is going to be a shift. I don't believe that the future generations are going to follow the government the way that we have historically followed. I think there's going to be a lot more questioning. There's going to be a lot more pushback. I do believe that there may even be a little bit more what we see globally, where there will be protests, and there will be a lot more protests, and there might be, the thought of overtaking parties and whatnot, which United States has really had somewhat of a luxury of not having that happen quite frequently. So I do believe that the future generations will have a lot louder of a voice than in the past due to all of this. I do believe that it is going to be very hard for those families that, even with a legal citizenship and they have the legal documentation and they are participating in society on an everyday benefit, I do still think that they are going to be questions for a little bit. It is our modern day witch trial, right? So we are hunting these down. We are going back to the McCarthy era type of any thought about communism, things like that. And the best thing that parents can do is make sure that their families have code words. So if somebody is going to approach the child has to ask for a code word. And if they don't have the code word, then the child has to run in the other direction. That is one strategy to use for sure. I think also too, having location devices for their phones, if they have cell phones, for example, put a Life 360 kind of process on their phones so that each and every family member knows where they are at all times. And I think that will also help alleviate some of that stress. It might also add to the stress because they're constantly looking at the phone. And in schools, they don't allow phones. So I think there's all of that. But I do think just the open communication between the families and the children, no matter how, I mean, you don't want to scare a child, but you do want to be very honest. This is where they're going today. This is where what they're going to do. And sharing all that information will help alleviate the child and the adult to know where everybody is during this time of uncertainty. And then just, again, spending quality time together and focus and try to become present and have those moments at dinner, try to have a family dinner, try to have a TV time together and or go for a walk, and that will all help to alleviate the stress of the situation that is going on right now. And then just keeping mindful of what you're saying and how you're saying it to the child. That will help communicate that everybody is safe and we should just continue on doing what we're supposed to be doing.
Okay. Now, cross-culturally speaking, we know of situations where territorially we have a wide cross-section of different cultures who reside here in the United States of America. Almost practically from every nation in the world, you will find someone residing here in this country. The reality is that cultural practices dealing with, when it comes to moments like these, people operate differently, they react differently. Mm-hmm. And the native culture itself could be probably offended in some cases at the way how some of them react. I said that to state this because there are some of those cultures who retaliate in terms of violence when things like this happen. If their next door neighbor is an American citizen, they are not straight, the likelihood of breaking their next door neighbor to take something or to even kill someone. This is not to exaggerate anything, but it's just a way of some reality for some cultures, not all. And that could also have a very negative impact on how the whole evolution of this thing is going.
Yeah.
Is there a word of vision or common sense, so to speak, that we can divulge to neighbors and communities that may feel a little bit scared of what's going on within their parameters when these outbreaks happen? How they should start thinking. It's just a matter of security because you don't know what the next person is thinking. But I said very time, I've hearing from several people that live in certain areas feel a little bit scared, even though they are Americans, as real Americans, they start to feel this tense atmosphere of being threatened of what's going on. More break-ins, more killings, and more murders. All these things are actually happening. And how do we keep that family somewhat, I mean, you can't keep them naturally, but is there a word that you can give to these families to be more cautious, opposed to be more scared?
Well, that's actually a really great question. I try to, in my neighborhood, it's very diverse, and I have a lot of, we used to have a very, very outside, outgoing, very talkative neighborhood, and since this has all started, a lot of people are hiding inside and quickly coming home from school or work or whatnot. And the best thing that I can do is I really do keep calm and move on, right? And I really do just tell everybody to be as sweet and as kind as possible and treat each other as if you want to be treated. There is going to be that fear, but in all honesty, the government has always preyed on that fear, and they've done that in times in the past in history, and we've survived. So we need to remember that we need to stay focused, and we do need to understand that there is going to be some anger groups. There are going to be, angry Americans at anybody who is not, like you said, anybody who has an accent is a threat. And then there's going to be the other side where there's going to be a person with an accent that is going to be angry because they're being targeted. So we just need to remember what it is like to take a few deep breaths, remember what it was like before all of this, and just try to be as kind to our neighbor as possible. But also, you can be cautious. There's nothing wrong with being cautious. It's just when your cautious steps into violating the human rights of another human being, that is when we have to recognize that we got to slow it down and pull ourselves back, because that's not how many of us, I'm hoping most of us, were raised, nor is the American way, right?
Absolutely.
We need to go back to remembering that. And I think every single citizen needs to remember what kind of a country we are, how we were made. We were made by English, Spanish, Dutch, Polish. There's no individual. Jamestown in 1607 was established by, yes, it was established by the British, but the Polish and the Dutch were the reasons why that survived. So there's multiple formulations and the help of Native Americans. So we are a melting pot, and we need to recognize that.
Absolutely. One of the other things I would like to ask you, children being able to isolate what's going on around them physically and practically, isolate that out of their mind and focus and continue to focus on getting good grades at school, because they think there may be some kind of interference there. Could you open up and communicate on that a little bit?
Well, I would definitely, if your family has fear and you don't wish to be out in the open anymore, there is plenty of resources to keep the children occupied. There's an app that you would pay small money for, or maybe there's a lot of free classes that's called OutSchool, and OutSchool can provide for further teaching. It's almost like a one-to-one kind of tutoring as well, and that provides fun exercises of all different topics. You also have online resources that they can interact with, not only for educational purposes, but also social emotional. There's social emotional learning, and then there are videos on YouTube that you can watch that address being calm, or address fear and anxiety and how to breathe through it. A lot of students are learning now Qigong, which is the Tai Chi type of stress relief and motions to handle anxiety. A lot of kids' apps are now for meditation and centering themselves, and then causing them to be able to focus on learning. And there are a lot of courses that are free from MIT, Harvard, other places that are teaching study skills. So all of these things, if you are afraid of actually being outside and going outside, I do want to also say, take those courses, but at the same time, bond with the people that you do feel safe with. Just like we did in COVID, make small little pods of people you feel comfortable and safe with, so that you're not completely isolating yourself and allowing the fear and anxiety to take over. Allow yourself to still have those close relationships with other people, and make the effort to have a family night with another family. And that way you can have games and go old fashioned, just like we did in COVID, where you only isolated with a small amount of people. And that will help to ease us through this process.
Yeah. What I was thinking is that this just got started. We have approximately, we could almost say still 4 years dealing with this. 4 years can have a very negative impact on a child or family who's cased up in them homes, maybe 90 or 95% of the time due to fear. While that is not happening, the body not getting adequate exercises it may need, and having the physical exposure of the environment in their face, I think that can cause a lot of mental and biological problems in the future, which, when government change again, is now going to put a whole lot of strain on the economy, trying to remedy these issues that would have been accumulated over the past 4 years. Is that something that you think we should also remind the people how vitally important it is, that despite of whatever's going on, you have to keep your mental status somewhat in shape by getting the right outside exposure and exercises as time go on.
Right. I would agree with that. I think, and again, that it could be use of the pod where you have other families that you feel comfortable and safe with, that you make a point on a Saturday afternoon to go out and play football or soccer or whatever, just to get the exercise, to get the mental health, and just get the fresh air. I also consider, if you don't feel safe, just, a lot of the teenagers now put their hoods up. It wouldn't look any different if you're putting your hood up and walking around the neighborhood. That is something. Make sure that you feel comfortable where you're walking. Have your cell phone on you all times. Make sure you're telling other people where you're going, but you really do need to continue. Just like COVID, we are going to see a mental impact. We will see a mental health impact of this after the 4 years, or even before the 4 years. We're going to start to see a lot more, a lot higher of survivor emotions going on. So as a country, we're just going to have to prepare for that, just like we had no clue coming out of COVID. But now that we can use the lessons of COVID to help us through this as well, we should be able to have systems and strategies in place to help the children and the adults that are struggling with mental health after this. And there is going to be a series of brain fog. There will be anxiety, heightened increase of medication, all because of the stress and anxiety that is going through this and the survivor mode that they're in right now. I'm hoping it will not be this chaotic for the next 4 years. Again, but we just never know with this new administration. It's highly volatile and chaotic. So we just have to, in essence, hope for the best and pray for, prepare for the worst.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Also, the electronic devices down to the very phone that you have, that you're depending on to call someone, now becomes, it can now become your enemy as well as the tracking device. Because when you're traced by these electronic devices, when you're caught, they take them away and they read what's on your system, and that could sometimes be your own enemy. I think everything we do now, we have to be so prudent in terms of giving advice down to that electronic device. And kids love the electronic devices. They love doing this and they love doing the other on their phones. But more and more every day, the phone now it's your friend, but becoming a monster also. So it's a monster friend. I think what kind of advice you would want to speak in terms of around electronic media?
Well, I really do agree with the ban on TikTok, for example. TikTok is great. I think it's funny and whatnot, but it is a tracking device. And if our government members that work for the United States government are not allowed to have it on their phone, I believe there's a reason behind that. So we have to support that. Even if it is a ban, I don't know how I feel about the complete ban, but for the kids, they really should put the phones down. They really should have only a certain amount of time. If you read the book Anxious Generation, you will learn at how dependent and addicted the children and adults, because we had not grown up with that cell phone. We are actually more addicted to the phone than the actual children are. It's just what they've grown up in. So we need to make sure we make time to put the phones down, put the phones away, turn them off. And then, you really do see a healthy status come out of not using the phone. And if you've ever watched 2.0, which is a documentary created by those who created the social media, none of the inventors of things like TikTok or the thumbs up app, part of the Facebook or whatnot, they don't allow their children to have social media. So if the creators do not allow their children to have social media, then there is a cautionary tale right there, right? So I do think that parents should put locks on and time limits on their phones, on the children's phones. I think that parents should also, when you come into the house, you put your phone in a phone hook right when you come in, and you leave it there for a little while until you have to actually check it, and you focus on your family.
I absolutely agree. And I think that will be more tailored to the mature parent, because these days the kids and the parents basically are on the same level. Right. And that's why so much things go on here. We're down to the last 3 minutes. If you can give any word of your thought, encouraging advice, and how to get through these moments, please feel free to do so.
I think this is just a very challenging time in our country. I think it's uncertainty. We don't know if we're headed towards a recession. We don't know if these tariffs are going to hurt us or help us. We don't know how the deportation is actually going to affect our community. Prices are going up. It is a very nerve-wracking situation. I just have to say that the United States has been here before. We have been through chaotic times, and we have come out each and every time stronger and more capable of creativity, inventiveness, innovation, and we just have to remember to be kind to each other. We need to remember that we cannot trample on another person's civil and human rights, and that we need to respect not only our former generations, our previous generations, but also the generations that are coming. And we need to remember that anything that we do impacts every future life. So we just have to be conscious, and we just have to be considerate, and we just have to use our heads instead of we cannot allow this country to put us into panic mode, because panic does not serve us well.
Well, Dr. Kfoury, that was really educational to the public. And it's really a pleasure always having you. And to all those who have been tuning in on Living in the 21st Century, have a great day.